All right, I have the opportunity here to be with Mr. George Frank Emerson, who has been one of the strong forces in the conceptions and designs of Heilung pianos. Frank, may I address you with Frank?
Yes, please.
Would that work? Thank you. Frank, probably most of us would be interested to know a little bit about you. How do you become a chief engineer and a piano designer? It seems kind of a very special field.
Yes, it is. It's not something you get specifically trained for. It's a combination of things in your background that lead to that sort of thing. First, I was a musician, and in fact, the way I got into working on pianos was tuning my grandmother's piano when my sister and I were preparing to perform at a music contest. And I had no idea what I was getting myself into. But I later learned all of the intricacies of servicing pianos, and the Piano Technicians Guild is largely due a large measure of credit for that. I have 3 music performance degrees, associate bachelor's and master's degrees. And when I got into the design aspects of piano technology, I took some courses in CAD applications and other such things, although I don't have any degrees specifically in engineering. I guess the first project that you could call manufacturing was when I worked at Ball State University, where I maintained and serviced 285 pianos on the campus. And I built a harpsichord, first from a kit and then another from scratch for the university. and then an old friend of mine from, actually, our families were friends for 3 generations back, but he and I, both independent of one another, got into piano technology, and he ended up working for Baldwin. And it was through that association with him that I first got into manufacturing and was responsible for designing new pianos ultimately at Baldwin. And I worked for Baldwin for about 10 years.
Now, when did you join Baldwin? Did you, what year was that?
Oh my, let's see. Must have been about 78 or 79.
That was the pinnacle of Baldwin. Baldwin was, the 2 names back then in the American industry, probably the American names were Baldwin and Steinway, right?
Yes, and Baldwin had expanded. They had 5 manufacturing facilities, including Juarez, Mexico, and in Mississippi and in Arkansas, with their home offices still in Cincinnati. And when they built all of these facilities, they were anticipating a continued growth in the industry. They had the capacity to produce, I think, 200 pianos a day. They never got production up to that level, but they were projecting that at one point.
To get to that point. But on the flip side, Baldwin had a huge artist following, and so there was, in the United States, that was a brand that was at the pinnacle of quality and success.
Yes, Baldwin was one of the manufacturers that wasn't so specialized as Steinway. They had not only a great respect among the artists and at the high end of manufacturing, but they also built among the least expensive pianos for the home market. So they had a full range of products, which most manufacturers don't really serve a market that broad.
Now, may I ask you, how did you now, Baldwin is an American icon. How did Mr. Heilung Chen get a hold of you?
Well, it was I left Baldwin to go to work for Mason and Hamlin. And it was while I worked for Mason and Hamlin that I was sent as a representative of Mason and Hamlin to China to work out some quality control issues with a new vendor who was making our cast iron plates at that time and had just begun producing the cast iron plates for us, and that was Heilung Chen. And so when I got there, we were kind of surprised to discover that although he was prepared with the foundry to make our cast iron plates, he had never made a cast iron plate for a grand piano. He had only made them for uprights. So it was a bit of an initial challenge to get his people to understand what was critical and about and what is more requires more careful quality control in the machining of a grand piano as opposed to an upright.
Wow. So, you know, here in the United States, at least, the word Chinese and product is almost like a brand. It means a bad product, one that can kill you or one that can hurt you. What was your impression of Mr. Chen as a family piano company owner? Did those things that resonated through a couple of cases? Of course, there's billions of products coming here that are safe and that are sound, but here and there we had, or some cases that affected the public. Do you see that a challenge at the Heilun factory?
Well, we've seen the piano industry grow from migrate from Europe to America to Japan to Korea and to China, and in each case the assumption was this is a poor quality piano coming from this new environment, and in each case eventually the quality improved, and we came to respect the quality of the product that we received, for example, from Japan. Now the situation is somewhat different with China in that it is a communist country, and there was some initial resistance to free enterprise. But the government, when they finally realized that this was a source of prosperity for their people and that free enterprise would encourage in a very significant way the prosperity of the people and the cultural growth, they were willing to allow it, but at a price. They had I believe it was a 15% tax that they imposed on privately owned companies. So even though they didn't own the company, they still got their cut. And that made it possible for free enterprise to develop. And I go to China, and it reminds me so much of the TV series Happy Days. It's just like that. The culture that we had in this country when we were undergoing that industrialization and wide prosperity and the growth of the middle class is happening today in China, and it's exciting to see that happen. And on a smaller scale, looking at Mr. Chen's business, it's very much a family business there. As time went by, I realized that many of the people that I was dealing with were his sister, his nephew, his brother-in-law, and just many family members are a very committed and dedicated part of that company. And it required, it was an advantage to me in a way to have been to that company and develop a personal relationship with the people for about a year and a half as a representative of an American company, because it gave us an opportunity to develop a trusting relationship that ultimately it was like I had some health concerns and wound up in a hospital, and Mr. Chen took me into his own home and treated me like a brother during my recovery from that. I'm going to take a short cut so we can keep the time here, and I'm going to start anew with the new set of questions here.